Hey, what's up, guys? 2 live streams in 1 week. What? So it's funny. I actually just finished doing a live stream, a private live stream with my Patreon supporters. It was a lot of fun. And I'm still kind of in the mood to keep live streaming. So I figured, why not? Let's just go again. So Friday afternoon live stream. We got another one this week. It's fun. So yeah, I guess while people are joining, a couple interesting things I've got to share for you. I put a couple links in the video descriptions for you to check out. Radenso, they're actually posting some additional videos as they're developing Thea. They posted a video earlier today showing Thea's motherboard, and we actually have a chance to take a look at kind of they're starting to build the radar detector. So they showed us some of the internal components. They talked about the size of the detector, how it's going to be comparable to the Max 360 or 360C in terms of size. Maybe a few millimeters here and there difference, but really similar. Talked about the USB Type-C power port. There's a headphone jack, which also functions as a microphone jack, and some of the cool features that adds. They talked about the laser sensitivity, about the display, and if it's going to be angled like the R7 or the V1. Hint, it's not, which is good news for everybody, all you international people, right-hand drive owners, if you're using the detector internationally. So a lot of cool stuff there. So if you haven't already checked that video out, that's a cool one to take a look at as well. Hawkeye 1680 and the live stream that we did earlier this week, we were talking a little bit about motorcycle installs, and I was saying how I don't really have a good way of doing that because I don't ride. He actually posted a nice video showing his motorcycle install and some of the specifics as far as mounting, wiring it into the helmet, the powering, the battery packs that he uses to run the stuff. Like, it was a really interesting install, and I learned a ton watching it. So he did a really good video about that, and I linked to that in the video description as well. So that's one that you can check out for all you guys who ride motorcycles. There was also a post, looks like an Escort employee was on Reddit earlier, and he did an AMA and asked me anything. And he was talking about kind of some of the behind the scenes stuff. And he'd actually said that while he can't talk about any upcoming projects that Escort is working on, he'd actually stated that the Redline 360C is not happening. So womp womp. That's a bummer. He said it was a mistake that was posted, but he also can't confirm anything that they're actually working on. So take it for what it's worth. A lot of that stuff has actually since been deleted off of Reddit, but I'd link to the post on RDF and their screenshots of previous discussions and stuff if you want to take a look at that. And I guess maybe speaking of the motorcycle post that Hawkeye posted, something I've been interested in lately is just collaborating with others. And so I'd mentioned in the earlier podcast or the earlier live stream this week that I shot a podcast, or I guess recorded would be the proper term, with Mark Green, who does the Cars Yeah podcast. And that's going to be coming out on February 12th. So I've linked to that one. And I've been talking to Matt from Obsessed Garage about doing a podcast with him. And we're actually talking about getting that one scheduled. We still need to sit down and find a good time to do it. And I don't know when that one's going to be coming out, but that's something that I've been interested in. We're actually planning on doing together. So this whole thing of just working with others, I know in the past I've done videos, maybe interviewing people like Ed Bolian and stuff, or I like doing these live streams. I know, William, you're like, hey, glad to finally catch you online live, or like this kind of stuff. It's fun to just hang out with you guys and meet other cool people in the industry. So if you have anything, I'll open the door for you guys. If any of you guys are interested in maybe doing a video, or you have something especially interesting, whether it's your install or some testing that you do, or you know somebody who would be cool to talk to, let me know. Reach out to me on Facebook or Twitter or the forums or wherever. Or even, hey, just say hi here. Like, I'm totally interested in, if you guys are doing something interesting, I'm happy to plug it here and help spread the word. If you know anybody that would be especially cool to share, or if you've got something you'd like to feature, let me know. Like, I'm just kind of in the mood for more collaboration type stuff, I guess. It's fun. In addition to the sitting right back there in my squeaky chair, and I still need to get a new chair, and just doing videos talking about, new stuff that's coming out, or tutorials and all the regular stuff. I'm kind of interested in just doing more of those sorts of things too. So if there's anything you guys know about or would be interested in, let me know. I'm totally open to that now. So anyway, that's just kind of some of the initial stuff that I wanted to share with you guys. And other than that, I didn't really have like a specific no squeaky chair. Oops, never mind. Yeah, I didn't really have anything in mind. Like I've been wanting to do a dash cam comparison review, and I'd figured I would do a spend some time looking at the video footage, but I'm kind of putting that off, and I just feel like hanging out here on a Friday afternoon and chatting with you guys. So I'm curious about what you guys are interested in, what you're curious about, what you'd like to know about, what projects you're working on. Let me know, and let's just hang out here and chat. Let's see. So Ross, you're saying, I think I commented on one of the Obsessed Garage videos where he had his R3 pointed skyward 5 degrees or better. It's super common. Yeah, it should be pointed straight. For all I know, maybe he did that before he got it adjusted, angled perfectly. Sometimes I'll do that. I'll shoot the video of something that I just got created. Like, yeah, of course, a detector should look good and be mounted properly. And then after I shoot the video, I go in and like fine tune something or whatever. So I don't know about his video, but yeah, detectors definitely should be mounted straight and level, like for sure. Lindsay, the R7 update is still very chirpy on 24 point whatever on K-band. Yeah, so I heard back from Uniden. They said there's no actual updates to the R7's BSM filtering. They didn't make any changes and improvements over 1.24. So that's one of the biggest complaints I know people have with the R7 is the BSM filtering. I mean, just isn't as good as the competition. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to more updates there. But yeah. Ross, okay, you're saying he did it for button access and wasn't ashamed of doing so. Yeah, with the blend mounts, especially depending on the type of connector you have, a lot of times like you can kind of pull down the detector and adjust the buttons, and then it goes zoom, and it puts it back into position. Depending on what clip you have, the spring clip, it may not actually do that, but they're usually designed so that you can pull it down, access the buttons on top, and then the clip automatically springs it back into position. Yeah, it does diminish the performance. So that's cool to know that that's why he did that. I guess just curious. I didn't know. So thanks for letting me know. Let's see. Crazy Guy NYC just got me a Max 360C in the mail. Undecided to sell my 9500iX that I have 2 of, or my V1. Yeah, I think in New York City, they've started introducing some of the multi-radar guns. I've got the 360C in my car right now, and I turned on MRCD just to test it out. I've been getting some MRCD falses with it turned on, which, as usual, is great for video, so I can kind of point my camera at it and be like, here's what the MRCD looks like, even though we don't have it in use here. But yeah, the 360C with the latest update is able to detect the MRCD, and I believe that's what they're using in New York City now for some of their mobile photo radar systems. And so, yeah, the 360C can detect them. The 9500iX that you have cannot. The V1 cannot do so in any useful way. The only way you can detect those is to disable your K-band filtering. So it's going to false like crazy. And it's going to just false constantly, so you can't actually tell the difference between MRCD and just another one of the thousands of K-band falses that you'll get. So technically, the MRCD can be detected by the V1, but not in any useful way, versus the 360C now can actually detect them and uniquely identify them. You are going to get some falses, but that's something to keep an eye on. Time-lapse dude, hello from Lubbock. Cool name. I love time-lapses. I used to shoot them for a while. I used to shoot a ton on Canon. And one of the things, a lot of my friends actually, when I was in time-lapse, they were shooting with the Sony like A7S2 and stuff, or the A7 II. And a lot of the time-lapse stuff, it's actually built into those, and the high ISO is amazing. And so I remember a lot of my time-lapse buddies, before I got my Sony, they were switching from Canon to Sony specifically for that. But what do you shoot time-lapse wise? I'm curious. Go Chiefs. Let's see. Hey from Kansas City. Hey from Tampa. About the R7 update, you have to enable MRCD to detect Gatso cameras. Yeah, from what I've been seeing, it looks like some of the Gatso stuff is still kind of tricky. How is the MRCD detection with the new update for the R7s? I'm curious. Or sorry, the Gatso detection. I'm curious how it fares on those. Terry, also in Lubbock. Let's see. Elias, not sure how you pronounce it. I'm getting a bike soon. Is there a radar detector specifically built for bikes, or can I mount my R7 somehow? So 2-part question. Is there a radar detector specifically built for bikes? Where is it? Yes. So there is the adaptive TPX. From what I've seen in terms of the performance of this one, I tried testing it. I had a technical difficulties, we can say. Because I was testing a beta version. Apparently the performance of this isn't that great, but it is waterproof. It's meant for motorcycle installs, and it's got big, huge buttons to use it with gloves, and a dongle here so you can wire it into your helmet, and it's got like this big alert LED and stuff. So yes, there is a motorcycle specific radar detector. I've got one, but no easy way to test it and like how it's meant to be used other than throwing it in a car, I guess. There is this, but apparently the performance and the filtering isn't that great, but this is an option. A lot of people, if you ride motorcycles, kind of what I've been seeing is they'll find a way to mount a automotive radar detector and then plug into like the headphone jack into their helmet or something. So that's typically what I've been seeing people do to get good performance and whatnot, whether it's an R3 or an R7 or something. You can do, I've been seeing like the Ram X mount kind of hooks in with 4 mounts like that, or you can attach like a magnetic plate and attach it that way. So people are doing it. Some people do Velcro. Again, take a look at the link in the video description that I posted. It's to Hawkeye's mount. He has an R3 and he used like a magnetic plate. Really cool install. So if you're curious, take a look at that. Let's see, Ross, you're saying the R7 update, it's actually a lot better for Gatso. I'm getting 250-foot detections on fixed installs. Awesome. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but is that sufficient for giving you enough warning time against Gatso? Just enough time to slow down? I'm curious. Just put this here for now. My Shelf O radar detectors. Hey from Cyprus. What's up, Paul? Let's see. What's the latest and greatest news on the V1? Nothing other than what I shared in the gosh, this stupid squeaky chair. I swear, I think I'm gonna have to go this weekend and like just go to Office Depot or Staples or something, or get a new chair. Ever since you guys pointed it out, I've been noticing it more. Latest and greatest news on the V1. 3.894 is the newest version in terms of features and stuff. There's 3.8945, which is what I have. Just TMF2 is on by default. Yes. And then 3.8952, which is some hardware changes, but no differences to features or performance, just easier design and building and stuff. So you have the newest version. So there's nothing new with that. We're all still waiting on information about a new V1, an updated one with new features and stuff. And we're all still waiting. Crazy guy. WD-40. I've WD-40'd this chair all throughout several times and no luck with the squeakiness. So maybe it's in some area that I can't access. I don't know. Let's see. Thomas, I live in Cleveland and I have an R3. I've never had an X-band alert. Would I get better performance in my detector if I turned X-band off? Not really. X-band is such a tiny, tiny frequency range to scan that it's going to do pretty much nothing in terms of improving the detector's performance. I know Rocky Mountain Radar likes to advertise, oh yeah, we took away X-band detection to improve their performance. Whatever. I could see that maybe if you get rid of the X-band part of the horn and like specifically set up the detector to only scan for K-band and Ka, I could see that, but not for the R3, which is designed for X-band detection as well. Yeah, I mean, if you've got it in Ohio, it's best to leave it on. It's not going to help improve performance to turn it off. 7 blocking. What would you buy for suburban driving? Radenso Pro M or an R7? No easy answer to that. I mean, I personally run the R7 more just because I like having the arrows. I like the accurate frequency display. I like the colored display better. I like the RJ11 port, and I've got the port there. I've got the Pro M, but I almost never run it. I'm not a huge fan of the buttons or the audio alerts. I kind of miss having the arrows and the accurate frequency display. And yeah, I have to run a new power cable every time I run it. But if it's your only detector, of course, that's not going to be a huge issue. So I personally wind up running the R7 more, but there's not a good answer to like, which one should you run? If you get the R7, you might be one of the people who are going to be complaining about BSM falses. Whereas if you get the Radenso, yeah, you'll have fewer BSM falses. That's one of the benefits of it. But you also won't be having the arrows. So, I mean, it's just trade-offs, you know, it's whatever's more important. I think that's one of the reasons why people looks like an Amazon package is showing up. Why some people like maybe the Max 360C just to get better BSM filtering, not as good as the Radenso, but better than the Uniden. Plus you get the arrows and lockouts. So trade-offs, right? And I guess we're ultimately all waiting on Thea because that should help figure out or address a lot of the BSM filtering. Plus you get the arrows. Plus you get all that stuff that we're wanting without all the compromises in this whole annoying discussion every time of, well, maybe you should get this detector, you should get that detector. Like we're all kind of waiting on that. So a lot of people, are saying maybe it makes sense to wait for Thea to come out whenever it is. It might be December of this year. You might literally be waiting all year. So we have no idea when it's going to come out, but yeah. Let's see. Oscar, Redline EXCI. Yeah, Redline 360C. I talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the video. Looks like some Escort radar technician, I think he was on Reddit saying that detector is not going to be coming. So for what it's worth, I don't know if that detector, it's all still just speculation with, whatever. Let's see. I got my R7 after watching your videos. Thanks, man. You're welcome. Yeah, it's a great detector. I run mine all the time. It's great. Not perfect, of course. No detector is, but yeah, it's a great detector. Merry Christmas, Dwight. Merry belated Christmas. Looks like, I got an Amazon guy walking up to my front door. Usually they've been pretty good about not ringing the doorbell. Let's see. Because it makes my dog go nuts or it wakes up my daughter. So for a while, we actually ran, I had a sign up on the front door that says, please don't ring the doorbell. We have a sleeping baby. And I would disable the doorbell's audio alarms just in case she's napping and stuff. But she's better about it now, so I disabled it. So, yep. But he didn't ring the doorbell, so that's kind of nice. Craig, can you do a video on how far each radar detector can get your speed? I've thought about doing that. Or sorry, each radar gun, I guess. When you say radar, it's kind of confusing because I've done a video, there's no such thing as a radar. There's radar detectors and radar guns. So it's kind of confusing when you call something a radar. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but I presume you mean radar gun can get your speed. Usually with that kind of stuff, it's pretty line of sight. Radar guns have to be able to shoot the radar gun, radar signal transmits, hits a car, and it has to reflect back to the radar gun. So it has to be line of sight. Whereas radar detectors, we can pick up radar signals around bends, over curves and hills, things like that, through trees. So we can pick it up farther than a radar gun can pick it up, which is one of the nice things. Now with radar guns, usually it's line of sight. You can read the specs and it'll say a mile of range or half a mile or whatever. But if you pointed at a big semi with a huge cross-sectional target area, it returns a big, huge reflection, and you can pick those up super far away. Whereas a car, they have to get closer to pick it up, versus a motorcycle, even harder to pick up. Or even things like the radar gun's beam, it's usually like a 12-degree beam width, sometimes a little bit narrower or wider, depending on the design. So if the officer has line of sight, but there's kind of a bend there and the car is coming in from an angle, the radar gun's beam is firing in at a different angle and can't actually clock that car until it gets kind of more in front of the officer. So there's weird little things like that. And it's kind of one of those things to say well, how far away can it pick you up? And then it kind of comes back to radar detectors. And you're like, okay, well, against a big, huge semi on a super flat open desert with no other cars in the way, maybe it'll be a mile or 2 miles, but then you take a different radar gun and you get a different answer. And it's that's cool in that situation. But then against a car, you'll get maybe half the range, or in different terrain, that number starts getting cut down more and more. So it's kind of one of those things where here's how much range you get in this specific scenario. Here's how much in that specific scenario. And it's it's tough to give a super accurate, correct answer without all these exceptions. So with radar guns, a couple hundred feet, 1,000 feet, easily, no problem, you're fine. So if the officer can see you, chances are he can clock you. That's usually a good rule of thumb without getting into all the crazy exceptions and stuff. Oscar, my R3's compass is not accurate currently. I was driving north today and it said I was driving east. Weird. Is that when you're moving? I have noticed the Uniden compass will spin before you start moving if it doesn't know what direction you're going. But then once you start moving, it should be pretty accurate. So that's weird. And they actually use GPS direction, not the compass itself. So any issues, if you've got, what's the term for the declination or something when the compass is off, because you're here in Washington, our compasses are off because magnetic north and true north are different. It shouldn't be an issue with the Unidens because they're using every detector GPS movement. So there's no way to calibrate that, and it should be correct. So that's a weird thing. I'm not sure why it's saying north if you're driving east. Like it should be pretty accurate with that. So I'm not sure. Bruce, yeah, Radenso just did a video today. And they said there's still a couple months out to perfect the motherboard for the radar detector. Yeah, they're still in development with that detector. And that's the thing. It's cool to see that they're actually working on it. And here's what it looks like in process. And here's what they're learning. And I know they're actually interested in hearing suggestions on what features you guys want and what you're interested in hearing. Like what features do you want? Any changes, any design choices before everything gets super locked in? So watch the video. And if you have any ideas, like one of the things they were saying is the headphone jack on the side, they've also set it up so it can be audio in. So you could plug in a microphone. So it could be things like, if you want Alexa integration, you could have that built into the detector. That's a possibility. They're not planning on having that available at launch, but it's something that could be added. Or even things like plug in a little microphone into the headphone jack. What if it could do ambient noise level measurements? And when you're on the highway or you've got your music going and it's louder, it can automatically turn up the radar detector's volume. And then if you're slowing down, you come to a stoplight, it can automatically lower the volume for you. So it's not too loud or too quiet. Like it can, oh, hey, what's up, Radenso? Or what's up, Randy? It can automatically do that kind of stuff. And that, again, may not be available at launch, but they're designing it so if they would later be able to want to add features like that for future proofing, they could. So yeah, they're doing a bunch of really cool stuff. And that's kind of part of what I mean of like, they were saying, if you guys have ideas, let them know when they're still kind of developing it so they could build that stuff in. And even if the features maybe won't be available at launch, they could add it in later, or maybe some talented developer or somebody who's like really into this stuff. One of us could build it, just like there's developers like Frankie or John Boy or the MSW logo. You know, all these people who can do third-party stuff, you can add that functionality in so long as the hardware supports it. I know there was a question earlier about the V1 detecting MRCD if you add YAVI1, and it's like, well, if the detector can't fundamentally detect MRCD and pass that information over to the phone app to say this is MRCD versus a traditional K-band source, there's not really a good way to get that information on the phone. Like the detector itself has to be able to do it. And if they're coming back to Radenso now, building the detector to have the capabilities fundamentally, even if the features haven't been added in software, they could be added because the detector has been built to tell the difference between the stuff in the first place. So whether it's adding microphone support or Alexa integration or MRCD stuff, like all that stuff, the hardware should be able to support it so that it can be added as software at some point. So just cool stuff. Billy, can police officers adjust their frequency that they send out of the radar gun? It's not a user configurable option. There is some options when the detectors are sent in for calibration and certification, they have to be tuned to the proper frequency to where they're designed to operate. If the guns are set to like incorrect frequencies, it starts affecting the capabilities of the gun and its sensitivity, its ability to measure signals properly. And that's one of the issues of out-of-tune guns. Like it can affect the accuracy of the gun if the frequencies start to get too far off. It can affect the sensitivity of how it actually can receive the signals coming back in the first place. Like it has a detrimental effect in several ways to the radar guns. So they are supposed to be in certain frequency ranges. That's why they're plus minus 100 megahertz or whatever, like certain ranges. Now, those antennas can be intentionally changed. So let's say an officer wants to run the front antenna and the rear antenna at slightly different frequencies. So maybe instead of 34,750, 1 second, boop. It'll be like 34,650 for the front antenna and 34,750 for the rear antenna. Maybe they'll be 100 megahertz apart. And so they can do that kind of stuff just to make sure front antenna and rear antenna is a little bit different. So they do have a little bit of control over the frequency of the radar signals, the people who are actually doing the certification and calibration of the guns, but it's not something that a police officer would be manipulating themselves, if that makes sense. So yes, they can do it, not the officer, and no, they're not. It's not really something they would be doing to try and defeat radar detector users, although they could, of course, and then we could just change how our radar detectors are, what they're scanning for to compensate. But that's, I guess, kind of the more complete answer to, can officers change the frequency that their radar guns are operating on? Let's see. There's an interesting one. Jimmy Boy, does turning on the K-band filter affect the performance of K-band on Uniden R7? This was super interesting. I remember doing a test years ago And we used to do tests with K-band filters on and off. They were usually the traffic sensor filter or something. Before BSMs were super prevalent, it was more practical to potentially turn off the K-band filter to improve the detector's performance on K-band, especially in curvy mountain roads and stuff. If there's not a lot of BSM falses and you really need maximum detection in tougher terrain, you could turn off the K-band filters for improved performance. Now, I remember testing the LRD50, and it was the weirdest thing because I was doing the test with that detector and I turned the K-band filter on and off, and it did not affect the range. Everything else at the time, the Escorts, the V1s, like everything else that we were testing in at the time, you would have better range with the filters off. And I remember testing and I was confused. Like, why is it that the LRD 950, you could turn on the K-band filter and it wasn't reducing my range? This was bizarre. Like, I thought something had gone wrong, and I went and tested over and over and over again just to make sure it wasn't a one-time fluke. And no, I was still getting the same range with the filter on and off, and it was amazing. Since then, the competition has kind of caught up. And so like Escort now, their K-band filter you can't even turn it off. And they've set it up to like where the filters are now trying to be able to tell the difference without affecting the range. So we're seeing this now in more and more different companies' detectors. But yeah, the LRD 950, and now you were asking about the DFR7, which is pretty much the same thing. Yeah, they're being set up to where the K-band filter does not negatively affect range, which is awesome. So the more complete answer, again, I don't do a good job with short answers. I guess I could have just said, no, the K-band filter doesn't affect DFR7 range, but I'd like better answers. So anyway, you guys are talking about Waze, Escort Live. Let's see, any videos explaining recommended setting for an R3 in New York State? Yes, I've got recommended settings on my website as far as the R3, kind of what I run and general recommendations. But you got to remember with these detectors, they give you different settings so that you can adjust them yourself. There's no one set of settings that's appropriate for everybody. So you're asking about New York. We know in New York, one of the biggest things is the stalker guns. They tend to run more out of tune. There's more officers in New York for whatever reason than in other states where their stalkers tend to drift outside of the normal frequency range that they're supposed to operate in. So in New York, really the big thing to know is if you're segmenting your detector, instead of just running 258, a lot of times it's recommended to run 24568. You're going to want to run more KA band segments in New York just because of the fact that the officers there, their guns do transmit on more inappropriate frequencies, or I don't know what's the right word. They're kind of off frequency outside of the normal specs. And the officers are still using those guns to issue tickets. And so in New York, it's recommended to run detectors with more frequency ranges. And I have, I've actually been keeping track on RDF. People drive around in the report, like in New York, hey, I saw an officer transmitting at 34.872 today. And you're like, wow, that's outside of segment 5. That's more segment 6. And so as people drive around and they find these different kind of out of, it's not like, it's technically not out of tune. It's like off frequency. I forget what the term is. I know somebody posted a clarification on that on RDF, but yeah, when people report this kind of stuff, there's a thread on RDF now that I'm keeping track of all this just to try to centralize and compile all this information that people are logging from all around the country, because I don't drive everywhere in the country. So it's a lot of people here working together for that. So yeah. And you guys, I know there's a lot of questions going by. I'm not going to be able to get everybody's questions just due to how many there are. So if you really want to get my attention, you can definitely use the super chat feature. And that'll just like make it light up here on my screen, and I'll definitely get to your questions. So that's just a tip. If you keep asking your question and you really want it answered, that's just a way to kind of get bumped up the queue. So just a heads up on that. But let's see. All these questions. What would be a good detector specifically for New York? There's a lot of good detectors that would work great in New York. Unidens, Radensos, Escorts, custom installed, windshield mounts. There's a lot of good detectors. There's not just one. And we have the same discussion every time. And I guess that's kind of one of the reasons I'm, for my own completely selfish reasons, looking forward to Thea, is just to say, what's a good detector? Yeah, go get Thea. Go get Thea. It's like it's going to be expensive. Sure. Totally get it. But I'm just going to say, go get Thea. And again, assuming once we test it, it actually lives up to expectations and stuff, we got to wait and make sure, but it'll just make my job easier to say, what detector should I get? What's the best? Go get that. So, and then for people who are like, well, that's too expensive. If it's $800-900, $1,000, whatever it winds up being, I don't know. Then we can start talking about, okay, well, if you're okay with living with some BSM falses, maybe you can go look at the R7s and the mid-tier Radensos or the Escorts and stuff. So, yeah. SJ, so in California, what are my main concerns for radar detector settings for an R7? So X-band off. Most of California, you can turn K-band off as well. I think there's a couple places around the Bay Area, smaller cities, where people have reported some K-band usage, but it's almost exclusively Ka-band. And in fact, CHP is almost all 34/7. Like there's some I've seen park rangers and stuff, some cops that may use 33.8 or 35.5, but it's almost exclusively 34/7. Like CHP, I believe, has a contract with Stalker. So there's almost no K-band in California. So if you're there, just disable X-band and K-band. It's all Ka and laser pretty much. So that's a good tip if you're in California. And then, yeah, you'll have great range. You'll have arrows. That'll be awesome. And you'll cut out almost all the false alerts. So score. I wish we had, well, we do have a fair amount of Ka, very little K-band, but we do have some K-band around here, which then I leave it on. And I get to see all the detectors, I guess, compare with filtering and stuff. But SJ, yeah, I have X-band and K-band off, Ka mainly. Perfect. Yeah, so you're set. And the rest is just details. Oscar, Vortex, what do you use? Everyday portable use. I run a different detector every couple days. Right now, I've got a Max 360C in my car. Before that, I was running the R7. I'm going to be running the R3 over the next couple days. I don't have one detector. I constantly switch. And yeah, so I like different ones. To me, they're just different tools. I run them for different purposes. Johnny, what happened to the giveaway you had on Christmas? The winners have been announced on the giveaway page. So sometimes, so this is kind of a funny thing. People ask this sometimes. And so on the giveaway page, I'll announce the winners will be drawn on January 1st, and I'll be announcing the winners right here on this page. I'll be updating it. But I think people miss that. And then they wind up asking me, what happened to the giveaway? And I'm like, I've already posted them on my website, and I've reached out to all the winners, and I've mailed out the prizes at this point. Like all that stuff has already been done. And I used to do videos of like, let me announce the winners after I draw them. But I find that it just pisses a lot of people off because they wind up getting upset that, oh man, I didn't win. And I just see a lot of people that wind up angry about it. And I was like, oh gosh, I was trying to give away a bunch of fun stuff as much as I can to get as many winners as I can for you guys. And then the people who wind up not winning, which is most people, because there's a lot of you guys and I can only give away, 10, 15 prizes or whatever it is. A lot of people wind up upset. So I usually would maybe say on Facebook or something, hey, I've updated a website, winners have been drawn, congratulations, go check or something. But I don't do like a specific video about it. Just, I guess, trying to not get a lot of angry people, to be perfectly honest. But then the wind up people even, months later, it's January 31st. And like, whatever happened with the winners? And I'm like, dude, I already did that. I don't know. So anyway, that's the story behind that. So yeah, it's all good, Johnny. So you can take a look there. If I haven't emailed you, you didn't win. Sorry. I've already everybody who won has already emailed me back, and I've already sent all the prizes out and stuff. So yeah. Costco sells a nice office chair. Oh, nice. Yeah. I need to go back there to pick up some more stuff. I think like some more milk and Costco size milk, a bunch of them. So need to head back there, and I'll have to stop by there, see if they have a good deal on a chair. Maybe this weekend we'll do that. Let's see. Greece, talking about that. Luis, any update on Uniden releasing or working on a phone app? None of the detectors have a Bluetooth that's like built in and turned on and ready for us to use. So until they do that, there's no way for it to work. Maybe they could try to do like a Bluetooth module the way V1 is done, but I don't know what their plan is with any of that kind of stuff. So currently there's no way for a phone to communicate with the Uniden radar detector in the first place. If Uniden makes a change, of course they can do that, but there's no way currently for them to do that. So that's why there's no app. It's just, somebody create it. Clayton, See, I thought I saw a video that discussed mounting the radar detector on the dash, mid windshield, and up top. Can you explain? Yeah, you did see a video. I've got it posted on my channel. But pretty much with radar detectors, people usually recommend running them up high by the rearview mirror. You do get a little bit, sometimes, better detection range with the radar detector mounted high. It's kind of like with cell phone towers. You usually see them mounted way up high on poles, on trees, on top of buildings. They're radio waves. They do a better job when they can see over obstructions like other cars or buildings or whatever. Similar with radar. I mean, if mounted higher, you're going to do a better job of seeing over hills and stuff. For that reason, it's usually recommended to mount the radar detector up high by the rearview mirror. It's not always going to give you better range. It's not going to triple your range than mounting it a foot or two lower on the windshield. It's not going to do anything crazy, but it's going to give you a little bit higher detection range. And in some situations, it may make a difference, but not always. Yeah, that's the short version. Yes, it affects laser because you're moving it higher up the windshield. It's farther away from the laser that's being targeted at your front plate or grill and stuff. So yes, it will negatively detect or impact laser detection, but these things suck at laser detection anyways. That's not really what they're optimal for. So it's like put it in the optimal position for radar and then complement it with the laser jammer. And that's going to give you kind of the ideal setup for radar and laser. And then I guess also run Waze. So radar detector, laser jammer, and Waze, 3 main things that I think you should run. So again, long answer to a short question. Kind of my specialty, I'm finding, I guess. I suck at short answers. Okay, here we go. Here's one that I'm going to do a short answer to. Hey, joined late. When I started, I think you were saying something about the upcoming radar detector. That would be one you recommend. What was the name? Thea. Short answer. In your honest opinion, would it really be worth it to upgrade from the R3 to the R7? I know it's fairly new and will continue to get updates. I have both, and I find myself running the R7 more than the R3 just because, well, the arrow's great. I prefer a lot of times the look and feel like of this. I like the mute button right here in the front versus the R7. It's on the side, which I think is kind of stupid. I love the button right there. I don't mind the smaller display. It's just you have no arrows. So I run the R7 just to get the arrows. They are helpful. Plus the updates come out first for the R7. And then once all that stuff gets dialed in, then they start releasing updates for the R3 and the R1. That's generally how that works. The R7 can also scan down lower in K-band. So if you run into any K-band that's lower than 24.050, some MRCD sources are a good source of this. The R7 can pick them up, whereas the R3 just is incapable due to hardware limitations. So, yeah. Johnny, cops on 405 by Redmond have been using laser nonstop. Ooh, I should go drive down there. Hopefully get shot with laser. It's been a while since I got hit with laser. See my countermeasures in action. It's kind of fun. I'll have to go swing down there sometime. Maybe make a trip. Instead of going to a closer Costco, I'll have to go drive over to Redmond, and I know there's a Costco there, so maybe I'll go to that one and hopefully get hit with laser. Let's see. Let's see. If you wait for Thea, many R7s will be selling their detectors at a good price to upgrade. Yeah, I guess that's one of the things. Like, probably a lot of people would sell when it comes time. So, yeah, I guess that's kind of one of the things. It's always a debate of like, should you sell before the price drops too much, or what's up, buddy? My dog. Or sell it now. I mean, personally, if it's only your only detector, I think hold on to it. You're gonna want a detector for sure. But yeah, R. Williams, Mac updates for the R3 1.50. What do you mean? I mean, you can already get 1.50 for Mac. For the R3, like you can already update. We're still waiting on updates for the R3, of course. R7 comes first, and they released an update. So Uniden is probably going to want to release updates for R1 and R3 too. But yeah, Axelrod, that area, yeah. So up high by the rearview mirror, it's more discreet with tinting in the upper front windshield. Yeah, it's a great place. I mean, it's just less visible to everybody outside your car to mount it up high. So it's a great spot to mount it. Thomas, is there anything that can cause laser false alerts? Yep. The most, our usual suspects would be things like cars, that have laser-based smart cruise control, that kind of stuff, that can do it, depending, like Volvos and Infinitis and some Mazdas, for example, can do it on the V1. Certain phones can do it, especially the ones that have like facial recognition, or like, oh, you can see you to unlock the phone, like Face ID or Face ID for the new iPhones and stuff. Those can sometimes trigger laser pulses. In the past, there were things like neon signs or the sun. Sometimes the sun even filtering through the trees could do it. So those are different sources we sometimes see. One of the common ones now is just a phone on the windshield in front of the radar detector. The radar detector sees the phone and falls to laser. That's actually a pretty common one. R. Williams. Okay, so this is, I don't know what the deal is with this, but the Uniden site says no updates for the Mac for 1.50. Download Uniden's update software. I'm sure if you scroll down, it's the same thing with the R7. But if you just get the update software for Mac, even if the software comes packaged with an older version of Uniden's firmware, download an older firmware package with the software. You'll get the Mac update software, and then separately download 1.50, and then use that firmware update file with the Mac update software that came with an older version of the detector. Use the newer version of the firmware in that software, and you'll be able to update the detector. Now, why they didn't just include the Mac update software with the new version of the firmware, I have no idea. There's probably some good reason for that I'm not aware of, but that's what I did. I just used an older version of the software. Still works just fine with the newer version of the firmware. And that's been a point of confusion, because if you go look at Uniden's website, it's like, oh, sorry, the Mac update software isn't available yet. And I'm sitting here as a Mac user wondering why. It worked fine for me. I don't know. So I'm not a huge fan of Uniden update software process. It's problematic and confusing for people. And yeah. Let's see, other sources of laser you guys are mentioning. Third brake lights for SUVs. Yeah, that could do it. Oh, that's good. So I'm pointing my iPhone X directly at my R7 right now, and there's no laser pulses. Great, that's good to hear. Let's see. Yeah, so this is an interesting one. Billy, have you had any issues with VFO stopping recording while you're driving? I use the 4K Duo with parking mode, and it records almost 24/7. Usually formatting the SD card fixes it for a couple weeks. I have actually had an issue with the A129, the 1080p one, and the A129 Pro. And the issue, I think, comes from using other USB cables to where the detector kind of like locks up. The dash cam kind of locks up a little bit, and I have to like unplug the power cable and plug it back in. I think it has to do from using a weird, if I use like a non-standard USB cable, just some cigarette lighter adapter and some random USB cable. My guess is it has something to do with the parking mode data communication stuff, and somehow just confuses the detector. I don't know. So probably the best bet is just to use the factory cables that it actually ships with and comes with. Are you, Billy, using like the included cables, or are you just using like some random USB cable the way I've been doing? So I'm curious. I don't know if I've tested it with the VFO cables. I'll need to probably dig it out of the closet and just try using those specifically and see if that eliminates the issue. But I have seen that before, and I think that's what it comes down to. Just my guess. So yeah. I use the VFO hardwire kit. Okay, so when yours, does it like lock up, or does the dash cam turn off, or does it stop recording but it's still powered on, or like what issue, I guess, are you seeing? Let's see. The best thing Uniden has going for them is the free software updates. Yeah, it's great getting that. Well, Escort, they do give you free software updates as well. All of them, whether it's the Macs, the Redlines, the MaxCIs, the iXCIs, all those you get free software updates too. The red light camera database, maybe that's what you mean, that you do need to pay for over time with Escort, but Uniden and Radenso continue giving those for free. So Billy, starts beeping and still powered on. That's weird. I don't know if I've seen that one. Just stops recording, and I tried to reboot it, but it continues to beep. That's strange. Does it give you an error message? I don't know what that is. I mean, maybe I guess contact VFO customer service. I don't know if I've seen that one. Let's see. Are you having any issues with the R7 speed and compass vanishing when you get a rear signal with a new update? I think that there were some changes with the all threat display, and they tried to make the compass and speed stay a little bit stay gone a little bit longer so that you don't get this weird bouncing back and forth between signals coming and going and the compass coming and going. So they have set it up now to where that's supposed to go away and stay away longer, specifically with 1.29. It is one of the changes that they've made. Let's see. Forte V1. Okay, so talking about X-band. No, picked up X-band. Where were you? Was it Luch Forte? Had my V1 set to scan all frequencies, and a cop car had X-band on. Where were you that you saw X-band? That is still pretty rare, depending on, I suppose, where you are. I'm curious what state, city, what part of the state, if you remember. So, yeah. Mike here. So, Radenso Thea. Will Thea tell you what gun that's being used, or will the display show it? Yeah. The Mike NTYTY. Yeah, Radenso should actually be able to classify the guns and say that's an MPHB3, that's Stalker Dual or Decatur Genesis 2 or something. It should actually be able to classify the guns and display that on screen. So that should be a pretty cool feature that'll be coming. Let's see, Chinese New Year stuff. Oh yeah, customer service, Chinese New Year. So I guess they can't get back to you. Intermittent beeping with the A129 Pro Duo. I'm not sure. The main thing that I see is like the detector. I keep saying detector. The dash cam locks up, and then I have to do like the power cable thing, which I think comes down to the cable. I'm not sure, but I did see it with the A29 non-Pro and the Pro. So it's something weird that I saw there. Let's see. Said the card was full and had to overwrite the whole card. Maybe did you have a bunch of manual record things and like maybe a bunch of files that it can no longer overwrite? I don't know. Let's see. 335i 101. I know you have a how to update video for the R7, but do you have one for someone who's not a computer expert? Can you tell me what is confusing about the video? Maybe I can give you better information, because I tried to make it pretty simple. Everything as far as installing the drivers, plugging the cable in, different cables to use, which buttons to press in the update software. Like, I tried to make it simple. Maybe I didn't do a good enough job. So if you can let me know what's confusing, what I could do better on, give me something specific. So the next time I do a video, let me know. I've seen some people still have different points of confusion. And I actually earlier today even sent an email to Uniden like, can you maybe make these modifications to your update software to make it easier for people? But I just find it kind of interesting when I'm like, here's a step-by-step walkthrough of exactly how to do it. And then I hear like, I watched a tutorial, but I'm still confused. Can you tell me if I'm not a computer expert? So I'm actually a little bit confused now on what's confusing, and I'm not sure how to make it better. So anyway, hopefully you can give me a little bit more insight into your experience. Do all cop cars on the same police force run the same wavelength guns? No, it depends on contracts and what they have. I mean, yeah, I mean, you'll see even within the same departments, they'll have different brand guns. They'll have different manufacturers depending on a variety of factors. Like, they may all, in some areas, all run stalkers. I know it's common in Texas, but that's not any sort of like automatic requirement necessarily. Compound confusion. Let's see. Genevo Max. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so Radar Detectors EU. Thank you for posting your videos of the Max, by the way. It's been cool to actually see the detector and kind of run through the settings and the display and actually see it instead of the stock photos and stuff. Got the new Genevo Max. It's good despite bad things said. I know there was a firmware update that came out that helped improve the K-band reduced detection range. I know in some of the initial tests, the K-band range had gone down. And that apparently has been fixed with some of the new firmware updates. So that's cool. Have you ever noticed Ka-band falsing on cheap detectors from oncoming traffic? Oh, yeah. The V1, I notice, is especially bad with this if you run with a Ka guard turned off. But a lot of detectors, they false to Ka-band. And that's one of the biggest reasons why most detectors have a Ka-band filter. It's designed almost specifically to filter out false alerts coming from other leaky radar detectors. It's pretty well known. So that's nothing new. Hey, see you, Kurt. Good to see you. At Rocky Road, John was that short. Well, I mean, I'm standing next to him in a lot of the videos. Like, yeah, he's kind of short. It's kind of funny. I know you guys were posting that in some of the videos on RDF and stuff. Yeah. Billy. Yeah. Have a good weekend, Billy. Hello from Dallas. What's up, Joey? SJ. How common is laser in North Carolina or Northern California? Sorry, man, I'm getting tired. I don't know. From what I've seen on the forums, very common. You're probably better off when it comes to like local specific. How often do you see this in this part of the country where Vortex almost never goes? I'm kind of reliant on like other people I see on the forums, whether it's videos or information that they post about what they see. So yeah, a lot of that kind of stuff. If you want to know specifics, your best bet is to actually hop onto the forums, and other people who are also in Northern California can tell you. So which forum? rdforum.org. Pretty much the same forum that I reference in like tons and tons and tons of videos. Like just Google radar detector forum, not radardetector.net or the Escort forum. So I'm just that one right there, rdforum.org. That's the one to go to these days. It's popular and everybody's on. That would be interesting. Monas, any hopes of Uniden ever giving us an update, the option to update with the Chromebook? I would love to see it, but I would hope that they would first get their act together with existing radar Windows and Mac updates. Like, it's still a pain in the butt with Mac. Like, I think older versions of Mac aren't supported. You got to have a newer version for it to work. I mean, I would love to see them add Chromebook support, of course, but I think they first need to get the big ones like Windows and Mac updating well, so that people aren't here on the live stream asking, if you're not a computer expert, even though I watched your tutorial, how do you update? So priorities, I guess. Johnny, is the DFR7 good against a Spectre? Yeah, I found it to be great when I tested it with the Spectre Elite, I think it was. I don't remember which one I tested with, but I found it did a good job. Yeah, so anyway, okay, well, I'm starting to get kind of tired. My brain is starting to get a little, I think I'm done. So I think we'll call it here for now. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy watching the Super Bowl. Hope we got some awesome commercials. Hope it's a great game. And yeah, that's it for now. So take care, everybody. And I will see you guys later. Bye.